Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. It is Sunday Funday. I am Ron Luce. I am joined by none other than the other half of the Juice and Luce show, the Juice Man himself. Sir, my friend, happy Sunday to you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm only 6.5 games back of the division lead, so not doing too well. I hate the Reds.
I also hate the
The
Reds.
And the Reds are stupid. Like they're gonna and now they're gonna play. Watch now that the Cubs don't play the Reds for a little bit now, the Reds will lose like 8 in a row and play horrible baseball because it's just how it works.
Yeah, they live to torture the Cubs. I'm right there with you, man. I am so I was a little out of pocket over the course of the weekend. I didn't see all of these games necessarily.
You're lucky.
But I come and I've kept up with it, and I asked just what has happened? What happened with this team? Like, we knew they were struggling, but they have largely fallen off a cliff. Like, this is just flat out ugly right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely ugly. I mean, you look at, the first game was a travesty. That's Kai running in the background.
I was gonna say.
The puppy's got the zips. He's a big puppy.
But then that'd be way more entertaining than watching the games that we watched all weekend. Watching Kai with the zoomies.
It really would. But two 1-run losses. But then they get it back today. Like, today, honestly, made things feel a little better. Shota looked like Shota again. The offense did just enough early. They got to Frankie Montas, as the great Pat Hughes says. I got to listen on the radio today. And with Beth Mowins being on TV, Pat didn't get moved up for TV on Sunday. So we're actually going to hear Mr. Hughes for his normal radio broadcast today. But they got to him in the third, and that was all that they needed. And it was like, okay, they showed they can play that style of baseball. Can we just go out and please do it more consistently? Like, I'm seeing red, Juice, as our episode title is here today, because, like you said, the Reds are dumb. They always beat the Cubs. It doesn't matter how good or bad either teams are. Like, it's just inevitable. And now you mentioned the standings, the most terrifying part of all of it. Not just Sunday Funday, Sunday Scaries as well, when you look at the NL Central standings and how far back the Cubs are off the Brewers. And thankfully, it's a mosh pit of teams right in the middle. But it's not great.
No. And then you're entering – I mean, I know Tampa's not like the usual Tampa Rays that you usually get every year. They've struggled a little bit. But then you get the Cardinals. The Cardinals are been a thorn in your side. They beat you twice. And then, not good. And then, no, I mean, you look a lot of games against the Giants, which for some reason, it just seems like a theme for this year is if the Cubs play the same team in the same 2 weeks, they're just going to go bad. Because I feel like when they played the Reds, this went bad. And now they're going to play the Giants, kind of the same kind of schedule, home away, and this may go bad. And I feel like there's another team I'm missing in there. The Braves, right? Didn't we only win one against the Braves?
The Pirates were even bad.
Pirates
won 3 of 7 in 7 games.
Yeah. So the theme for this year is like, if you see the Cubs play a team, they're going to play them right after, and the Cubs aren't going to play very well in that series. So if that holds up, the Cubs can find themselves way further back than 6.5. And that's not good, especially not going into July. We've seen the song and dance before, Ron. When you have to play catch-up, you get to September, and you're exhausted. And that's not good. Also, too, like Boog and JD were talking about on the broadcast this weekend, there is such thing as like blowout wins, like easing the tension for games too. Mm-hmm. And the Cubs have been in just all 1-run games, it seems like, for like the last 2 months. and they're not good in them. It's a stat that I don't think that if you pulled up right now, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I know they lose a lot of one-run games. They do. And they're at kind of this weird, odd crossroads in the season, in my opinion, where it's like you got to figure out what you do well. And my opinion, what they do well is they have starting pitching, but they need to do something else well other than just pitch. Because if you keep just pitching, it's going to be a pile of just frustrating loss after frustrating loss because you're going to look up and say, well, it's not on our starter's fault. He went 6 innings and only gave up 2 and struck out 8 and, pitched the 6th innings. So now handed over the bullpen that's being protected. It's not like you're asking the bullpen to get 5 outs like you were, earlier in the season when the starters weren't going deep. And now it's like, all right, you got to figure out what you do well. So they need a second attribute that they can lean on. And in my opinion, that's why you saw Michael Busch at second today, because I think they've made the choice of we're just not going to be the team that we promised that's going to play incredible defense. We're just going to have to try to slug our way, because if you look what's going on around like this team, it's Dansby and Nico not as strong as they were, a year before.
Yeah.
Madrigal played unbelievable defense at third last year. They don't have that. You got as bad as they were at first last year, like hitting wise, they got decent play at first for the most part once they moved Belly over to that way. So I think like the plan may be I'm going to play Busch at second. I'm going to throw Belly at first. And at least I know like my outfield's strong with Pete Crow Armstrong out that way, and I can, add some speed for when he gets on base. So I hope that that's the case, but they need to figure out an attribute to pair with the starting pitching, because if they just pitch, it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And I got that 1-run game stat for you here. The Cubs are 12-14 in 1-run games
not good
this season.
Not good.
They're not.
What's
they're
Milwaukee?
Not on the plus side. Milwaukee is 11-10.
Yeah, I mean you got to be on the plus side of 1-run games. You just have to. And I don't know these numbers either, but I would guarantee you that Milwaukee's played more low stress victory games, like your 6-1 wins, your 7-2s, your 5-run victory margins that you're just like, all right, I could just throw anybody out there for the last 2 to get to the end of it. The Cubs just don't see. It seems like every time they turn to this bullpen, it's like, all right, I need 3 outs, and you can't give up more than a run. And that's just not the recipe for success with this pen. I'm sorry. It's just not how it was built. And it's been better. I'll say that. They've done a lot better job at it's like they need to figure out some offense. Somebody's just like Belly, and I know we saw some good things out of Swanson this weekend, but like we just can't be this same song and dance of like, all right, it's Swanson's week to hit. And now like the rest of the lineup is not going to hit. Like you need 2 guys who are going in a lineup like this, because we talked about it on the live stream. There's just not that one guy that can carry you for like a sense of like a week when every guy is struggling.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Juice. Well said. And before we continue, because Juice and I agreed as we jumped on tonight, we're just talking. This is like a venting session. It's kind of what it is. It's a friendly place for Cubs fans to get their frustrations off their chest. And with that in mind, I highly encourage everybody, if you're watching along, jump in the comment section, join the discussion, and we will make sure that we include those throughout the broadcast. And as Mr. Brandon B, I actually had a nice conversation with Brandon B in the old XDMs the other day, a little Cubs baseball chat. It was good. It was a good time. He says, "Gents, what a game," referring to Sunday, thankfully. He said, "We didn't lose today and they can't tomorrow. It's a 2-game winning streak of sorts." It's a 2-game winning streak for our mental health is what it is. And we'll absolutely take that. But Juice, I do want to, turn the conversation here a little bit, because you mentioned how horrific the offense has been. As Zach says here in the comments, fire Dustin Kelly went from the top offense to the worst. And Brandon B says, "What? Patrick Wisdom can't carry the offense?" It has become very much that joke. But Juice, we got to address the elephant in the room. There are now more rumors starting to swirl with the Cubs, and two names in particular have been mentioned. One is at the catching position, and that is Elias Diaz, and the other is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Guerrero Jr., they said, was an internal discussion by the Cubs, kicking the tires on the idea of trying to go get him. As for the Diaz stuff, it's just confirmed that they're talking to the Rockies about it. So maybe there are some packages being discussed and moving pieces that could get a deal done. But Brandon B had a comment here. He said, after talking to his contacts, absolutely nobody, as he puts in parentheses, I am not crazy about this Diaz possibility. Juice, what say you on Elias Diaz? And is that something that can help them fix some of these problems we're seeing?
I mean, good quality big league hitters fix this problem. And I mean, if you look up and down this lineup, there's a lack of consistent MLB proven talent that's on it right now. Diaz would be a nice, to me, that's like a pool patch, when your pool's leaking. It's one of those, like, you're just hoping he hits for a span of the next couple months, and then you're probably moving on from that. Probably in the market for a catcher no matter what, but his age is something that worries me. I think if you truly are looking at this division and you're saying, like, and this was something too that on Twitter I went back and forth, should I tweet it? Should I not? I have it still in my drafts, but I wanted to save it for the show. If you look in their system, I don't think that there's a legitimate, like, this guy is going to be a superstar that is in their system currently right now. I like Matt Shaw. I like Casey. I think Alcantara has potential to be a superstar, but I think a lot of things need to align in the next couple of years for that to pan out, for that to happen. It's why I kind of am the person who sits in these trade articles and I'm like, please don't trade Kevin Alcantara, because I feel like that could be the Josh Donaldson kind of deal, that you let him go and then he becomes a star and, is something that you look back on, you're like, man, like, I really wish that guy still stayed here. I think the question I would ask is, who does Jed and the front office like as their prospects? Like, who do they look at as, this guy can't, like, first name, if it's out their mouth, I'm hanging up. And I wish I knew those answers.
Yeah.
We could speculate. They've kind of talked, at nauseum about Pico Armstrong. I think that they really like Pete. They're giving him a second chance up here in the majors. I think they really like Cade Horton. Cade has obviously been, a guy that they think he can be up with the team, hopefully next year after clearing his back injury and getting better. Back injury, is it shoulder? He's got something going on, right?
For Brendan?
Cade Horton.
Oh, Cade? It's a lat.
Lat.
Yeah, sorry, as Pat Hughes said on the radio today, a latimus morsel, I believe, is the official term of the muscle. I think I butchered that, but Pat was showing off today and cackling up the radio booth. I was enjoying listening to the radio broadcast today, Juice. Lat injury. Sorry, just wanted to continue.
So, like, looking through their system, I just wonder, like, who do they value? Who are teams asking for? Does that line up with the same? Because to pull off a trade, like, I mean, there's a lot of names in the comments here. Vlad, Shea Langoliers from Oakland. And there's another name that's been mentioned in there. What's hard is you have to figure out, like, for you to feel like you want to trade, you have to trade away something you don't believe in to get something that you do believe in. So, and that's why I feel that some of these trades that are out there are like, yeah, I would love to have Vlad. Is he signing for a long-term deal? Like, if you're making a trade where you're letting a guy like Triantos go, or Ballesteros, or Like I don't think they would trade Shaw, but let's say that you do in a hypothetical trade a guy like Shaw or Alcantara. Like that just sounds like you got to bring him back as a core piece to this team for the next 7. So not only are you paying prospect capital, now you're paying salary dollars down the road here. That makes you less flexible. As much as we complain about it, and how we wish the Cubs would spend some money. Sometimes it does hampering the fact that they can do that if you do sign Vlad to a long-term contract. So I just wonder, like, what is out there, who's technically available, and like Diaz, it just doesn't, like the original question was about Diaz. It just doesn't excite me. Like we're talking about that whole Coors Field thing scares me. Coming to Wrigley, and I know that like I've seen his splits. His splits are fairly equal. Like I just feel like what I would rather go and make one huge splash at like with Toronto, and maybe you get a catcher and Vlad. Like maybe you get Danny Jensen and Vlad. You give up 2 prime prospects to do so, or plus because it's going to be 2 to get the conversation started, plus a couple more after that. And you can sign Vlad plus Jensen for a long time. And then, like someone asked in the comments, well, where do you play Vlad? You play him at first. Like you just figure out everybody from there. As much as we all love Michael Busch, play him at second. Maybe he's not a long-term answer. Maybe he's like your Mr. 2 a.m. or Mr. 3 a.m., where he comes off the bench and can be a pinch hitter for you. Like, figure it all out after that. Like, once you get that big name in the system, then everybody slides in where you need. But you need, like, that big name that these teams come in for, and they're like, we can't let him beat us. And Vlad has the potential to be that.
He does. And Juice, there is a lot of comment activity, so we're going to get some of it here. Matt says he wants Vlad. Brandon wants Shea, thinking it'd be a better fit. He says Diaz is old, he's 35. Fake ball coach here saying that nobody knows that in terms of who do they truly believe in, right? Because it's a crapshoot. Prospects are prospects till they're no longer prospects because they're essentially just gambling chips. That's all they are. It's a gambling system in baseball of who the next star is going to be. It's their own internal talent.
In all fairness, though, you can read between the lines of what some of these guys say and how quickly they move up through the organization and what they do with prospects. Like you can tell they like Jefferson Rojas because they made him go to spring training as an 18-year-old shortstop and sit in spring training. They don't do that with everybody.
No, absolutely. And I think Rojas at this point is probably the one prospect they don't want to trade. I think Jed's going to find a way where, maybe it's a chance to, start moving some of these other guys. You say, hey, Rojas is our one untouchable. We're willing to move, a couple of the names mentioned a little bit earlier were Mervis and Vasquez. I think that's totally possible. There's plenty of them. Matt's calling for a PCA trade. I mean, it's bedlam in the comment section right now, Juice, but a lot of great comments, a lot about Vlad Jr., some conflicting comments as well. And Juice, I like what you said there in terms of just like make a splash. You don't need to go out and address every hole.
And you're not going to do that. We went into this offseason and this whole season knowing that there was going to be some holes in this roster. There just is. There's going to be all the way to the end of the season.
Yeah. I agree. And maybe some of it is giving some of these young guys a chance to come up and this is your audition. Are you going to play well enough for us to hang on to you or maybe trade you and improve your value? Or is this judgment day for a lot of these, kind of prospects this season? Because I think this is where it turned the corner and you have that next wave of prospects. They have the best farm, quote unquote, in baseball. Use that to go get yourself established players. Now is the time to do that, especially when you have some things already set in stone internally, right? It's going to be something to see. Brandon's calling for the possibility again of like a Juan Soto. He says, maybe could you trade for him? But unfortunately, the Yankees are in a playoff race, so they're not going to trade Soto. You have to
100%.
compete for him with dollars. So maybe it is an advantageous play to go out and get, two meaningful, players here that you can invest in the future. Maybe guys like you said, Vlad and Jensen would be great examples of that. There's certainly a lot to see. Everett brought up a little bit earlier that the Blue Jays EFA Biggio. So he's a guy that could be had off waivers. It will certainly be something going on there, and we'll have to wait and see where that goes from there. And Brandon brings up a good point here. Jed scared to use the farm after the Dylan Cease trade. Yes, but they also were in a competitive window. So like you're not just you're going for rentals, but you're going to get the best rentals. I think in this case, if you're giving up meaningful prospects, it is to get guys that are, game-changing players that you can invest in long term. Guys that you'll have that ability to hang on to for more than just a season or two. And not like the Jose Quintana's like a guy he was a strong player, but he was a guy that they took advantage of him having one really elite season to move on from him in on the South side, where maybe you could go get a guy that's a little more of a sure bet. I know that's never a sure thing, but it's something to keep in mind. I think Paul Coach saying all the minor league outfielders are blocked, no bats for them, trade Happ and Talkman to let the young outfielders play. I am for that with the sense of Owen Casey playing. I think Owen Casey needs to be up sooner rather than later, personally. Where do they go from here? Like when do some of these guys get a chance to play? And because if they are truly blocked, if you can, raise their value a little bit and then move them, or you find a guy that you're going to keep and you move something else, now's the time to start doing that, right, Juice?
They're going to play their way into that conversation over the course of the next couple of weeks, though. I'm personally not ready to have those conversations yet. Like we're trading potential core names that have been here. I mean, Talkman's been your best player. They've talked about it all weekend. Over the course of in this lineup, he's been your best player all year. Which if you would have told me that in April, I would have said you're nuts. Or I would have said that the Cubs won like 15 games all year. That's but they're going to play their way into that scenario where maybe you're a seller, and then at that point, like, a contract like Ian Happ or, a bat like Mike Talkman on a, playoff team that's contending, or, Hector Neris is another name that I've talked about that I think that would be great in the bullpen. I know that he obviously has been leaned on here. But yeah, I think they're going to play their way into that. I just don't know. And some of those names too that are on there, like with Canario, like he's hot now. Casey's had a good year, but Alcantara struggled at AA for a lot of this year. He's kind of turning it around over the course of the last couple. But yeah, I mean, some of those guys who have come up and down too have obviously shown some struggle when they come from the AAA level to the majors. You seen it with PCA. Canario got a shot up here and didn't. He was okay. He wasn't hitting the cover off of the ball, but was doing enough. But they're gonna play their way into that conversation over the course of like these next 3 weeks. I would rather for these next couple shows that we have here, but talk about the potential of resurrecting this Cubs team and what they would have to do so. If it's not the trade deadline, or if it's not, moving things around within the organization and giving guys chances at the DH spot. I think that's an opportunity. If you wanted to see Eno and Casey up here, just bring him up and DH him every day. If you feel like he doesn't have a position, the DH is in the NL now. You could absolutely do it. Play Morel at third and, play Talkman in center and Belly at first. And if you feel confident with, Bush spotting in there opposed to just getting everyday playing time, then you could do so. Maybe he plays at second when Nico's down, because Nico seems like he's going to be out for a little bit. They got to find a way to get some of these younger guys up here And Owen Casey, I think like he's earned his time now. I think he's the next name that we'll see, but I don't know. I don't know what we'll do in terms of like the lineup, because just seeing Michael Bush out here at second base today was like, okay, like they're really trying to just throw offense into the lineup, 100%. They're, because as much as everyone wants to talk, well, he played 100 and some games in Double A and in Triple A. We've seen it with Christopher Morel. There is a total difference between playing a position in the minors and playing the position in the majors. So they're just trying to jam hitters in here, and they have to, because they just don't hit.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to find the offense. Fake ball coach says great point. Juice on the DH. Use those guys there. Maybe it's just for an extended stretch of games, 10 games at this point. Let the kid get used to it, see what he can do. I think Casey's the most logical because he's had success at every level, right? Like, he had a great 20-year-old season hitting 290, and then is a 21-year-old now in AAA. He's still hitting around 290. I mean, he's been really good this year and would be a fantastic player to give that opportunity to. I think Juice, he's the one guy currently that's maybe closest to that like star realm. Maybe he's not the star, but he could be a star. And that might be all they need right now. And Matthew says Nightingale said the Cubs are pursuing Vlad. So that means it's not happening because it's Nightingale. But he's the ultimate like reverse con artist.
You know what Owen Casey coming up also means? It also would mean that it's an opportunity to clear out some of this dead weight on your 40-man roster.
Yeah.
It's something I've been screaming about for 3 weeks, and I feel like it's not getting enough run within Cubs Twitter about how just horrific their 40-man roster is. Like, if you look at like some of the tie-up spots that are there, it's like you got to figure it out. I mean, there's still Jose Cuas is on there. I mean, that's like a name that, like, yeah, sure, if you're going to bring him, but he's going to be bad again. What are you expecting, from him at this point? I don't see it. I mean, there's, just to pull up a couple other names that are just sitting on it. Like, I mean, you have to have Alcantara on it because of his time, but he's not even going to be near, getting a chance this year at the level. I mean, you have two of the same player. Essentially, Nick Madrigal and Miles Mastrobuoni are the same player, and one is very hurt right now. I mean, broke a bone. I mean, Bodie's getting his last chance here. That's another spot that's on there. Both catcher spots are historically bad in terms of production. That's being held up. And then Keegan Thompson, which, like, yeah, you hope, but I mean, he hasn't shown much over the course of the last couple times coming up that you could trust it. I mean, there's a lot of, like, Caleb Killian's on it, but he's on the 60-day. So it's like, all right, he's not really on it. There's a lot up and down this Jose Cuas I mentioned. Colton Brewer is another name. He's on the 15-day DL. But then there's like, it's just like a bunch of different like hurt pitchers and junk. And it's negating the fact that the Cubs have to be flexible in a time like this where they're begging for offense, to adding a guy like Casey to the 40-man, because you have to do that before you bring him up. And you're sitting with all this junk on your 40-man, like, and you can't do it. You just can't do it.
Yeah. And I look at this 40-man 2 Juice, and there's two other additional takeaways I have from there, because I agree with you that trimming the fat is necessary. One of them is you have to, I think you, just to double down that you have to trim the fat, you have to carry Kevin Alcantara, Alexander Canario, some of these other top prospects on your 40-man already. And two, to boot, right? I think that's where, give some of these guys a chance. Let's see Brendan Davis finally at the major league level. He's on your 40-man. Let's see Alexander Canario. Let's see those guys who are a little closer. And let's add Owen Casey. Because now, like you said, just the 40-man depth improves with a guy like Owen Casey joining it. And hysterical comment from Brandon a little bit earlier that I need to bring to light. Owen Case equals the only Canadian joined this roster anytime soon, eh? Yeah, it very well might be that case. And some hot takes here.
I
Darren
like
says
the Owen Casey way he spelled it too. That's cool.
that's how I spell it too, because I'm too lazy to write out Owen Casey on a very regular basis. Darren says maybe Morel's a trade casualty because he can't feel the position. I don't know if that's the case, just because he's the only bat they have right now. But fake ball coach says both should be gone. Juice, Magical, and Master. Boney. Juice, that the name you want is Wisdom, is what he was saying. I think you're clearing the fat, because fake ball coach says the Wisdom experience has to end. It really is right now, Juice. They need this depth to be better, and I think that's part of what's killing them. There is no internal answer. Like, other teams have these guys they can call up and they can come in and fill a position at a time of need. Good teams do that. But now you got to start seeing if some of those guys are that. Owen Casey, Brennan Davis, others that can potentially help this team turn things around, because right now the offense is dormant. And like you said, because the depth that you're carrying on the 40-man is not worth what it is.
It's not.
And it's absolutely tragic.
And there's better, in my opinion.
Oh no, we might have lost the Juice. Did we lose the Juice? Is the Juice loose?
Hello?
Oh, there he is.
Do you have me now? Sorry.
I can hear you. You're frozen, but we can hear you.
No, I just look at, and then too, like, you try your best to look at this roster, and you're like, I could sit and shit on Patrick Wisdom for days. Scott knows that. I'm just not a fan. But I don't know. I feel like there's been more that have been cut over the course of the last couple of weeks.
Oh no, we lost you again, Juice. The technical difficulties are too much to handle. Oh, and he's gone. Will he come back? Oh, and he's gone. But yeah, Juice is right. Juice is 100% spot on. I'm going to hang out with the comment section while we wait for Juice to get back here. Let's see what everybody has to say. Brandon says, oh no, Wisdom is Council's personal fan. Hot days, the force coming from his bat, 6 swings and wins. Yeah, that's been an experiment that I am not a fan of either. Darren says these current problems would be good problems as the core and proven vets would be playing to par. That certainly is something to keep in mind there. Are we getting the Juice back? Is he loose? Is the Juice loose?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you're a black screen.
That's good. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know what they're doing out here with my internet, but as long as you can hear me.
I can hear you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can't hear you anymore. Oh no. Oh no, it's tragic. We're working on the technical difficulties here. We'll keep going with the comments and then let's see what everything that's going on. Fake ball coach, even Bodie would rather see Vasquez than Bodie. I agree. The Bodie thing is truly just, you got to see if he's worth keeping around anymore. Trimming some of that fat. I think this is part of that experiment. Brandon B says, honestly, feel like Central is getting more athletic fast, drafting, developing decent guys. Yeah, I think that's the case. You're seeing the Pirates do it. The Reds are starting to do it. The Brewers are certainly doing it to an extent. They really always have been. Jay asks, is there a watch party on Thursday with Steele pitching? We'll get to that at the end of the show, and we'll address that. We are in flux right now. The off day will be scheduling day for us. Scott says, Magical breaking his hand. The first game is par for the course. Unfortunately, I totally agree. No idea. Council had Wisdom in the leadoff spot, never reached base, and has dropped his 278 OBP. Yeah, he is bad. Juice says that Joey Popcorn hitter. If Bush can play first, third, and second, he is valuable. Absolutely. He's proving his worth. I mean, if he can move around a little bit, that would certainly help him right now. I did not DFA Juice Everett. I promise. But Everett says, Juice, you look good in black. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're still a black screen.
Jeez, I'm gonna go onto the phone.
Okay. We'll see in a minute. He will be back. Yeah, it really has gotten to the point where these experiments need to end. It feels like some of them have just run their course, and there's going to be tough decisions that need to be made here. I think the Cubs need to get active sooner than later because they're trying to extend this supposed window. And in order to do that right now, it's going to take figuring out where you can add depth on your 40 man while at the same time, again, trimming some of that fat that is clearly just not working out right now. I'm in the camp of let's see, Brennan Davis at the major league level. I think now is the time if that's going to happen. I'm super interested to see what happens there. Maybe a Michael Arias. He's really gotten back on course at AAA Iowa. Only 2 1/3 innings of work, unfortunately for him, but they're starting to work him in. Maybe he's a guy that we can see at some point this season. It'll be certainly an interesting thing to see. But I really want to see Mr. Brennan Davis. I think that is the move because the 24-year-old right now, get some stats up here in front of me, right now is having a day. 238. The average isn't great, but he's at 966 OPS player right now with Iowa. 564 slug. He's slugging, something the Cubs don't have. 402 on base. He's got 10 homers, 26 driven in 35 games. I think that is certainly a worthy spot. Hello, Mr. Juice Man.
You got me now?
Yes, we do.
God, dude. Something with this, it's South Bend, I think. I think that's just what it is. There's just no internet.
Scott from Iowa said you have that Joey Popcorn internet.
I think Joey transferred his internet to me. What a terrible trade. He starts getting dinger picks, and I get Joey's internet. That was just not a
dude. Joey has been on a tear on the dinger picks. He got hot.
It's always odd to do a show from this.
Yeah, that's normal. I feel that mobile shows are always weird. You've done your fair share of mobile shows with me over the years.
I have. I don't like doing them.
No, I know. I don't either. It's weird because you guys have seen me like standing in front of a garage door before. I feel like on these Cubs on tabs, especially later in the season. It's all kinds of fun, man. But bringing you back in, let's see here. What else do we have? Whose universe are we not living in? Darren says that he believes in counsel, but not even Bizarro Baseball universe does leading off with wisdom.
Dude,
sense?
Can I talk about that?
Please do.
I cannot believe that 2 days in a row that was the thought. Because I get, like, you haven't scored. Maybe you like the matchup. You put them at the top, whatever. But 2 straight days, like, that was asinine to me. And then it bit him in the ass in the next night that he did it because Wisdom left a bunch on base. Yeah. I don't mind him in the lineup, but I don't like him in the top 5 of it. I just don't. Like I don't see what has warranted him the chance to have more at bats. I just don't.
And that's fair. I agree. I saw that, and I actually had to do a double take on the second day because I was like, wait, again?
Yeah, because it worked so great the first night.
Yeah, with their 2 runs scored in the loss on Friday, and then the 3 that they scored on Saturday to still lose by a run.
And that was so frustrating too, because it's not like they didn't have chances. Like that was the all series. They had chances to score. They just left a bunch with runners in scoring position. It's just trash.
Yeah,
it's starting to become frustrating because it's like one portion of this team does something each night to screw the rest of the other ones that are playing decently. It's like when you pitch well, they don't hit.
Mhm.
When they hit, they don't pitch. When they do both and they hit and they pitch, the bullpen blows it. And some days they don't even have a chance because your manager is putting guys at one that make no sense batting in the 1 hole. It's wild to me. But it's this dance that the Cubs are playing in 2024 that I don't like, and I want the dance to end.
I feel that. I feel that as well. A hot take here in the comment section. Council putting guys out there to prove to Jed that these guys aren't what they need. That would be some next level trolling by Greg Council if that weren't the case.
With that said, though, other than Tom Ricketts, Craig Counsell and the Cubs organization has the most job security in the whole building.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me somebody else that has more job security.
Nobody. Not a single person on this team. Period. Maybe Dansby Swanson.
Even him. He's as easy as you're
He would
traded.
have to move his no trade though, and he's got a lot of contract left.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe Dansby, but not for a good reason.
No, that's just strictly because of strictly because of the dollars and cents. At least right now it is when the bat's been quiet. But the bat has turned around a little bit in this series, and that was encouraging to see. Did you notice that he went with the long pants now to switch up the mojo?
Yeah, who was that the other night on the live that I was talking about knock socks? Remember?
Oh, you were talking about knock socks.
Oh, it was it Yanni Gomes
Maybe.
that went, or were we in the bleachers for that? And I went, oh, he's in his knock socks.
It might have been that.
I don't know, it was something, but we were talking about knock socks. Remember me, you, and we were talking about knock socks.
Yeah. Hey, and maybe it's working. Maybe it's working. This is an interesting question here from Rickest. I think this is probably a great thing to use as probably one of the last big final punches of our event session for the day, Juice. What in the hell has Jed done to earn the job security? And that's honest to God, a very fair question right now. Because under Jed's tutelage, this team has not done much except for dismantle your World Series core, build the best farm in baseball, but not have results and action to back those accolades. What has Jed done besides the fact he was Theo's right hand man for one of the greatest stretches in Chicago Cubs history?
So this is kind of fun because I like to bring up old shows that we've done on Cubs on Tap to talk about, things that are happening with the team currently.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, we did like a whole thank you, goodbye, Theo episode when this show was like fairly new. Like it was maybe our first or second year that Theo Epstein had transitioned out of his, role with the Cubs. And you can go back and find it. It's in one of our earliest episodes. And my question, while everybody on the stand and our show is a different panel over the course of it, but you were there, I had said, I don't know if Jed can do this job because you could not differentiate. Yeah, whatever. You couldn't distinguish what was Theo's work and what was Jed's work over the course of
Well said.
the whole 2016 team run. So I can't sit here today and go, yeah, he's got a track record, he's been good. No, we went back and I remember looking at his Padres days and going, those teams weren't that great that he put together in a short term with the Padres. And he was in Boston with Theo. Mm-hmm. So what was he doing there that was, different than what Theo was doing. And then, he gets here and Theo took the brunt of the role. He did the press conferences. He seemed like he was the front man. He was the final save, the final boss for a lot of reasons. Seems like, you know, what Jed has with Carter is the same way now, where it's like Jed makes the decisions, Carter comes up with, the solutions, and then they figure it out together what they do. I truly think it's safe to say that we don't know if Jed can do it. And fake baseball coach here in the comments brings up a good point. He has built up the minor leagues and all his stops. I'll give him that. But we're talking about a major league level success here, and I don't think we can point and say he's had it because all of his success seems to be under the tutelage of Theo Epstein. And I said that when they hired him, they gave him the job, and I said, okay. And then he didn't hire a GM. Remember that for a while?
Yeah.
He kind of did both jobs. It's interesting to bring that up because this is 2 off seasons in a row where the Cubs have, I think, in the fans' perspective, missed the boat in terms of you know the different moves that were made. There's a huge miss in terms of what they did last year, which was Trey Mancini and that. But it's difficult to sit here and say like, yeah, it's he's proven he can do it. I I fail to think that his seat is scorching hot, but I think it's getting to the point where it's somewhat uncomfortable. I would
100%.
definitely say that there's a lot more out there of like fire Jed and with bullet points that make sense. You remember a lot
Sure.
of times you would see fire Theo and you go, why? And the points never made sense. But generally you have to look at it and say his his run's been fairly average at best.
Yeah.
And Cub fans aren't going to wait around for the minor league system to come up and save the day, especially too when there's been a lot of you know misses in terms of like guys who come up who aren't right away superstars that have come from that minor league system. There's been for everybody who was like, oh, Matt Mervis was going to solve the problem at first base. Well, that's still a problem in some ways. Michael Bush has been okay. He hasn't been
Yeah.
great, but yeah, it's there's a show out there that I will definitely go back and listen to after this show because I remember sitting on there and saying like, I don't know if he can do it. I hope he can do it. I know he's got
Yep.
great experience underneath Theo, so he knows how to do it. But putting a plan into action with free agency, with minor league drafts, with trades, like it's a difficult job to be a GM and even harder to be a good one.
Mhm.
And I think that we're kind of rounding into what Jed is like. I don't think Jed has been very good in free agency. I don't think
Yeah.
Jed has been very good at the level of trade either. Can you really point at a trade that says, man, he's really, knocked it out of the park with this one? Maybe not yet. Maybe now this gets him, more jumpy to do one, but I can't really like look at his tenure and go, man, he really knocked it out of the park with this move. I
Yeah.
just can't yet.
Yeah. Well put. And a load of commentary to go along
Love
with
it.
that as well. Everett wants Jed's job. Scott was mentioned, the legacy of trading Bryant and Baez. Stoll just in general here saying, it wasn't even a fun watch today after 2 innings because then the team just didn't do shit. But things just weren't going well by all stretches of imagination. Ricketts says having a top farm doesn't mean winning. 100% true. Agreement with you, Juice, here regarding not proving at the MLB level. Also saying that they traded LeMahieu for no reason. He just wasn't their guy. It's a lot to take in, and it really is a fair question of when does that start to fire up? And Juice, a hell of a follow up from that. First, we got to get to his initial comment. Our co-host, Mr. Tyler here, who was in Cincinnati today, he's venturing his way back, and another reason why he's not on our show this evening. He says, "What's up, boys? Glad finally got a win today. But the Reds, the effing Reds, they're going to be a thorn in our side this year, aren't they? They sure are, man. They sure are." But he followed up with a heck of a question, Juice. Absolute bender. Does Jed get booed at the CubsCon stage next offseason?
I would hope, as a Cub fan, no, because if he doesn't, that means that they made huge splashes prior to January when free agency kind of. But I thought it was warranted to maybe some people to boo him this year. Because, I mean, if you look at what happened over the course of the offseason, and the buildup, there, Belly had still not been, re-signed yet, brought back. Shota Minaga was a nice signing. We didn't think he would be this great this fast, and thank God he is, because if you they are 10-2, I think, in Shota Minaga starts. Can you imagine if it's anybody else who's like 500? Like, the Cubs are maybe one of the most disappointing teams in baseball, if not for Shota Minaga over the course of. But my hope is that he does enough this coming off season, regardless of how this season pans out, to where he walks up to CubsCon and goes, "How about that? How about that, guys?" He has that ammo, and it's maybe it's a big name like Juan Soto walking behind him, or a Roki Sasaki, or one of those big, like, top 5. Like, look what I was able to bring in.
Mm-hmm. Look at the new shiny toy.
Yeah, and then you could start to bring in all those, new toys behind him in the minors that are like, hey, it's another year. It's another year for Kevin Alcantara. It's another year for, Shaw, for Horton, for, Casey. All these guys are coming up, and look, I just brought even more of talent into, the forefront. I hope that that's the case. But if he goes into this team, if he goes into CubsCon, and this team is much the same, or it's minimal ads, or it's, a guy here, a guy there, I think there's a good chance that he's the one being booed. Other than Mr. Ricketts. I mean, obviously Ricketts gets booed no matter what, just because he owns the team, and people, for some reason, which I get, and sometimes look at it as like, oh, he's cheap, and but I get it. But yeah, I certainly think that there's a scenario out there where Jed gets booed when he walks into CubsCon. And this is probably asinine. They'd have to be god awful from here all the way to the end of it. There's a scenario where it's not Jed walking up as the GM, I think, too. If they're that bad, it's good. People are already starting to yell for his name.
Yeah.
To be burned at the. I don't know. They'd have to be very bad. Let me preface that. They'd have to be very, very bad, like worse than they're playing now over the course of the stretch with the same team, and him do nothing for that to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a great question, and I think it's a thing. What do you think? You think that that's a possibility?
I think it's certainly a possibility. Wouldn't be too terribly surprised. I do want to get to a couple comments, and I will answer your question here, Juice. A couple of which come from a plethora of people. Fake ball coach, I like Jed. We're not in his shoes. Tough to get on people for doing the jobs to win. He says, but that's why we also have tough jobs, being the ones that sit here and critique it. And he says, hey, he believes it could be wrong. Free agency seems to be very hit and miss. They have not been good. You need to develop players. And that's, I think something that we're waiting to hopefully see. If the Cubs don't make the playoffs, Jed probably gets booed. Cubs fans on Twitter, they've been calling for Jed's head for a while now. Hell, they're already going after Craig. Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. I've seen some of the Craig hate, and I'm like, oof, that's not fair whatsoever. Hank said the Cubs are starting to smell like the Bulls, just trying to be competitive and never actually going for it, keeping under the luxury tax with tons of fans filling the seats. And that's kind of a good little note there. Just aren't motivated to go for it. Spend. We'll get to this in a little bit here, Rickus. We did talk about Vlad a little bit earlier, but we will at least answer your question, even if it's a short answer. Hoyer not paying the 2016, overpaying the core was, probably his best decision.
I agree.
True. He's Rickus says true, but he thinks that was decided before Theo left. The plan would be to dismantle that core at some point. Hard to be worse than they've been the past 3 weeks, 100%. One last hot take. Talk been doing very well, but what if Canario and Casey were having those at bats? Could give you a better idea if they're studs or not. It's like they just piecemeal to steal someone's. Thank you. Oof. Reading's hard today on a Sunday Funday, but I think there is a world, because I think there's a lot of people that are starting to get impatient. Like, yes, Wrigley Field will still be full, but I'm waiting for the day when this team starts getting booed when shit goes bad at Wrigley, because I think it's coming. And I think that day is when Jed's seat gets a little hot. Truly, I think that's when it is, because then that puts the pressure on to go out and go get something to improve this team and then have a proactive offseason to try and move things along. Maybe it's just as simple as at least you're calling up guys like maybe Davis or Casey or somebody just to see, hey, is this guy going to be able to help us at the big league level? If not, we can use them as trade chips, even if it's on a small sample size. Just try to do something with it. And Juice, I mean, we can even sit here and talk about Rick's question. He says, do you guys see more? He asked, did we see the news? Yes, we have seen the news or the rumors, that it's being discussed internally, but maybe Jed's seat's starting to feel a little uncomfortable, like you said, because their names are coming up in a lot more rumors now. I think they have to, because Juice, I'm telling you right now, if there is booing at Wrigley Field this weekend, especially 2 against the Cardinals, I'll be there on Saturday. If the booing happens, we'll let you know. If the Boo Birds come out, Jed's seat is officially hot, in my humble opinion.
I think so too. I also think too that maybe this losing streak could be the best thing for them. Not losing streak, but this losing run. Because in a hypothetical world, let's say the Cubs played somewhat better than they've played over the course of, still below 500, but better than they've played over the course of the last, month and a half. I still don't think that team, even if they went on a run, was good enough to make noise in the playoffs. I jumped on this show for the preseason show and said 78 wins is how they were constructed. It's pretty spot on so far over the course of this season. Because
Sour juice strikes again.
No, I know, but you look at the everyone talks about how these guys are going to play to the back of their baseball card. Well, what if their baseball cards just didn't match together enough to create more wins? And in my opinion, that's how this roster constructed now looks at. A lot has to go well for them to win baseball games. You look at that Yankee roster, it's like it's nuts, right? Like they have talent up and down. They could have guys have bad years or bad stretches. You look at that. I mean, I know we're envious, but you look at that Dodgers roster. I mean, they can get contributions for a lot of places. What the Cubs have to have is Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki, all being just back of their baseball card all year. And that's just not possible. Like, up and down is going to happen. And everything else is just kind of put together around it of like, yeah, guys who haven't truly performed and proved that they could do it consistently at the major league level over a course of 162. So when I looked at this team's roster going into it, I was like, yeah, 78 wins sounds about right. And that's why, like, you look at this stretch and you go, yeah, I think that maybe what is happening now is for the best case for the Cubs, because maybe this makes them be more proactive than they would have, going to this trade deadline if they were sitting within, 4 of the Brewers, and they're like, oh, we can still catch them. Let's just add, a reliever. Let's just add, another bat that's gonna walk. Now you look at it and you're like, I got to look at this thing not only in the span of the short term, but I got to look at it in the long term as well. And that's why you're hearing so much about Vlad Jr. Because it's like the Cubs need to add that superstar in that lineup, not just for this year, but for next year, the year after that. And we can sit here and say that Owen Casey could be that, Shaw could be that. Sure, but that's a lottery ticket. We don't know.
Right.
We just don't know. Brendan Davis was going to be the guy, right? Remember, we sat on these shows and we're like, Brendan Davis, Brendan Davis. I said it myself, hand up. Brendan Davis, because of injuries, because a lot of different factors, hasn't been the guy that we thought he was going to be. I hope he gets there. He's got the attitude to do it, and he's putting together a decent run now.
Yeah.
But like we said, and you say it the best, Rod, development is not linear. It's not, you can't predict it. It moves in different ebbs and flows. And some guys take forever until they break into the major leagues and find their mainstay. That's why, like, the more proven commodities you could add to your roster, the better. And maybe this is why this is good for the Cubs. Maybe this is good and healthy for the franchise to figure out, hey, we're just not good enough. We're just not. And let's do something about it.
I love the positive upswing to carry this thing out here. Rick has said the Phillies is a team that you were mentioning, Juice, those teams that are just
Phillies.
deep up and down the lineup. Darren says not getting another good position player in bat and a couple more proven bullpen arms of quality prior to the season is on Jed and the brass, no matter how they slice it. Yeah, the lack of things going on. Cubs won't win in a playoff series without having a true impact hitter. And prospects are just lottery tickets, and lottery odds aren't good. Well said. A prospect's a prospect till they're not a prospect anymore. That's like my favorite.
With that said, it's a lottery ticket that you can control. You can find player development is a thing, and the Cubs need to do a better job of it, or they need to trim some of the fat so we can see if they're doing a better job of it.
Yes, I think exactly that last part, and that we obviously got into pretty deep here. Juice. Turning our attention forward. This was a good vent session. I feel better. I hope you do as well.
I think we talked about a lot of because this is what's great about this is we don't really get into the long term. We try to do a recap of a series, but I think we've kind of went all around the Cubs organization in tonight's show, which is great.
Yeah, it really, really is. And Big Ball Coach says here, he says, the more that we talk, the more it makes sense. He never believed it, but Ricketts is financially responsible. Jed wants Jed to develop players and supplement free agency. And I think the Hayward thing scared the crap out of the Ricketts, and it did. 100% did. And that was a whole cultural shift inside the team that brought us to where we are now. And it's, the Ricketts don't want to overspend. They spend wisely, and they're forcing Jed to. You brought in a guy like Carter Hawkins who did that for a living with the Guardians, but at least he's got more fun to play with at a bigger level. They're not going to spend with the Dodgers. They're not going to spend with, potentially the Yankees. They're not going to spend with some of these other teams, but they got to be able to develop. And the development is just not there right.
To add on to that, fake ball coach, there's a YouTube video from our live stream that we talked in depth about this. If you want to go and listen to it, we talked about what the Cubs' philosophy is around the organization. And I think like a lot of what we just talked about, a lot of what your comments says was brought up over the course of, that. I think it's a 15-minute video. To round it out, my opinion on all of that, they have to get over that whole Hayward thing. They really do.
Yeah.
Just because you swing and you miss on one doesn't mean the next one's going to be the same result. Yeah. They got to get back in that batter's box and swing for the fences sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. And supplementing Rick's comment here, so there's nothing wrong with spending wisely. Sure, but I think that you can still have that one big financial commitment. Go get that one true superstar and then supplement that player. And that's, how things will get. Darren says on prospects, we sit and tell them we know. We know. Truth is we don't. Moneyball, yeah, you don't. They're big old gambling chips. He says we know more than him, but Cubs wouldn't spend either the big boys. Am I missing something? Yeah, no, they don't spend with the big teams. I think they made a true offer to Shohei, but it just that was the
W's never coming.
one. Yeah, that was just different. Yeah, and that's true. Cardinals do more. Well, they've spent smart.
What's the saying? There's different ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, you can skin a cat a lot of different ways. Juice, let's look ahead, my friend. 3 games coming up on the schedule. The series starts on Tuesday, so a Monday off day. I know myself that is a grocery shopping day and movie night. Just to settle in. And before we get back on, and we're dialed into this team for 3 down in the Sunshine State, one of my favorite cities in the country, in the Tampa area. It will be the Tampa Bay Rays. 3, the Rays have not announced their starters just yet, but the Cubs have. It will be Jameson Taillon on Tuesday, Javier Assad on Wednesday, and the ace Justin Steele on Thursday. All 3 of these games are 5:50 Central Time starts. So a very, very, very early game for a lot of people in the Chicagoland area. Juice, I'm excited about these. We're going to do some internal talking about how we're going to schedule things from a media standpoint. Hopefully do a watch along and a show this week, and we'll navigate those waters. And as mentioned, we'll have some weekend ballpark content as I will be out in the bleachers on Saturday. And then Tyler will be in town actually on Sunday and Monday. And then I think Monday you are joining us in the bleachers as well. We talked about maybe
Monday, I believe so.
Yes, let's go. That'll be a great night.
Yes.
We love a little Monday night in the bleachers with the whole gang. It'll be a good time. But nonetheless, Juice, what the hell do the Cubs need to do to have a positive outcome in Tampa before returning to play the Cardinals this weekend?
Do whatever they're not doing for the last month and a half, which is like pick up the ball and throw it to first and hit the ball over the wall and get good starting pitching like they have. I will say this, over the course of like this whole bad run, at least their starters have pitched. Every night it seems like you're getting a decent, performance out of a starting pitcher. Usually, in terms of like regression to the mean and, getting back to your average, like if you keep doing that, it's a recipe for success for sure. Good starting pitching is going to carry you throughout a season. And the bats are going to go, but I would just really love to see these bats just start to go, man. It feels like it's been such a long time since we watched this team put up like a crooked number. Like I want to watch them put up like 14 runs at a game. When was the last time the Cubs put up like 10 plus? Feels like
a while.
Forever.
Yeah, that was the one nice thing about this team last year is sure they were volatile as hell, but you had those games where they put up, 10, 11 runs on a very consistent basis. They were actually one of the top teams in baseball for double-digit, games with double-digit runs. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I agree, Juice. I just want the bats to get hot. Go get hot with that Florida June weather and warm up down there and come back for what's going to be a beautiful weekend at Wrigley Field and a little bit of heat coming for that Giant series then as well, literally and figuratively, given how the standings are going.
You know what? Real quick.
Yeah.
The Cubs players today, they're probably getting in get a nice sleep in.
Yeah, they're already in Tampa. They're out of Cincy already.
Sleep in tonight. Maybe tomorrow they go and like take a day in Clearwater Beach, lay on the beach, walk up and down. Maybe they get a drink. Maybe stop at a spa. Take your day off of baseball and then come back and then just ready to go on just a straight run. That'd be nice.
It would be nice. I second that wholeheartedly. Some thoughts here for this upcoming series. Fake Ball Coach says for the movie night, Iron Claw is his pick. Stolen says hit with runners in scoring position and not run into outs on the bases. Scott says call up Owen Casey. Hank says if only the Cubs knock the ball out of the park consistently. As we do. Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. Play smart, be aggressive, and have some damn pride. Love that from Darren. Stop striking out with runners on base. Start simple and put the damn ball in play. I agree. All good things coming up. Just start whacking the ball around the yard, and we'll.
The other thing I like, Ron? all these things are great. Just win 3 baseball games in a row.
Yeah. Just
I don't
win
care how
3.
you do it. I don't care if you win 1-0 in one, and then 10-9 in another, and then 13-0 in another. I don't care. 3 wins. That's all that matters.
And
Stack some wins.
the last time the Cubs had a win streak of any meaningful length, so more than 2 games, late April, was a 4-game win streak. That's it.
Yeah,
It's been a lot of win one, lose one for this Cubs team this year.
time to win like 7 or 8 in a row.
Would be nice. It would be really nice. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Juice, before we get out of here, as always, want to remind everybody that we are one of 2 shows covering the Chicago Cubs. Dingers should be live tomorrow night on the off day, so you need your Cubs baseball content. Head over here to the On Tap Sports YouTube page. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell button, and you'll know when all of our great shows go live, including Dingers tomorrow night around the 8 o'clock Central Time hour. Be sure to follow them at Dinger Cubs on the socials. We are at Cubbies on Tap on the socials. Do follow us as well. At Luce on Tap, at Juice on Tap, Juice on Tap, Luce on Tap, Juice on Tap, Luce on Tap. Crack them, block them, and fuck them. At Joey Knows Nothing, Teddy Freddy 270, Nick _ on Tap, and at Silent Bob _2. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks. You guys know the drill. Blackhawks offseason is going to get good. 4 Feathers just recorded tonight. If you're a big Hawks fan,
Yeah,
head over.
Who they taking with that second pick?
I think. See, I am on the side that's not the popular opinion. Everybody wants Ivan Demidov, who is the Russian winger. He's
You want the defenseman.
I do want the defenseman. I like Artem Levshinov, and I liked him before the combine. I feel like I've been one of the few people that's actually expressed that publicly on the socials. I like him, and then you saw his personality, and it was good, and like he was funny, and like he got along with the media well. He strikes me as like a good like locker room guy, and he fills a need. Like I know they need wingers that need a score, but they also desperately need a right-handed defenseman, and if you get him, Korchinski and Vlasic with Jones as like your core of the future at D, then you just maybe you could spend a little bit. It's all good. People should go listen to the show tonight. We dove into all of it at 4 Feathers Pod. Bears guys are firing up at Bears on Tap Tuesday.
Which is going to be fun. I'm going to start to get back to the Bears on Tap shows real soon. I want to do, and this was something that I want to do little like recaps of Hard Knocks. I think that's going to be fun too, to jump on the Tuesday shows and talk about Hard Knocks more often than not. I think that would be a kind of fun thing for us to do too. Make fun of some of the guys.
I like that. I like that a lot. But yeah, I want to hear that. Bears on Tap is where you can find that. And Cubs fans, you know the drill. You got friends that like the Southsiders, and so do we. Send them to our friends. They can be friends over at Sox on Tap. Darren asks, is Thursday night the watch along? We were asked this a little bit earlier too. We are not sure yet. We will announce some of that on the X page tomorrow. So be sure to find that. The juice is loose. The juice is always loose. Win's a win. Juice score doesn't matter. Love it. 100% the case. Let's go Cubbies from Everett. Good night, Cubs fans. Don't say that, Rickus. We're not even going to show that. We're not even going to bring lights to that.
But you guys know the drill. Optimistic now. We usually know we're going to ruin them, but for now, let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's have some fun. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on the socials, the OnTap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. This was a blast, Juice, as always. But what do you say, buddy? Let's shut this thing down with the off day tomorrow on the horizon.
Fuck my internet.
Yeah, and fuck the Reds too, and let's go Cubbies, baby.